Welcome to today's webinar, The Roadmap to Success with Digital Tools and Technology. Our speakers today are Jason Averbook, CEO and co-founder, LeapGen, and Jess Von Bank, Head of Brand and Vendor Services, LeapGen. A special thanks to our sponsors of today's webinar, Loom Apps. Loom Apps aligns the modern enterprise workforce through better communication, engagement, organization, and work. The company's leading intranet and employee experience platform intelligently connects people, information, and applications to deepen business relationships and grow institutional knowledge and productivity. Available across devices and languages, Loom Apps is an open, multi-talent platform built for enterprise scale and flexibility. Loom Apps is counted on by over 4 million users, spanning the world's top enterprises from Airbus to Zendesk. Jason, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. Jess, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you? Thank you, Catherine, for such a beautiful intro.
Exactly. And you know how when the internet all of a sudden goes crazy, you're like, is that just me or is that everyone?
I know.
Funny, when we're talking about digital, we start dealing with technology stuff.
Yeah.
So good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everyone joining. Thank you for taking the time to join us on this webinar today. Really, really excited to jump in and talk about this concept of roadmap and how do we build roadmaps for digital success. And as Catherine said, thank you to Loom Apps as well for sponsoring the webinar today. Really, really proud to be here on behalf of Loom Apps. One of the things that Catherine said, if you've never been on a webinar before with LeapGen, we really like chat. It's part of not just getting connected to an event, but actually building connection, which is one of the key components of digital, connection. So please go to your chat, change where it says send to, change it to everyone if you can, and just say hi. You can say what city you're joining from. You can put your LinkedIn address there so people can't find you, whatever. Hi, Melody. Just say hi. Hi, Tanya.
Perfect.
Hi, Andrea. Christian. Awesome. There we go. Now I feel like we've got a crowd. This is awesome. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and advance the slide. We've already done the introductions, myself, Jason Averbook with LeapGen, and Jess Von Bank with LeapGen. We have been in the HR technology space for a while. Myself, much like double the time that Jess has been, just based on my age.
Yes.
But really, really excited to talk about this topic today. So from an agenda standpoint, what we're going to do, I'm actually in New York City. I should have said that. I'm in New York City. Jess, where are you?
Well, I'm in Las Vegas right now. I'll see you back in Minnesota later, Leo. Hi, Leo.
Oh, Leo's in Minnesota?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't even know Leo was in Minnesota. Interesting. You're going back to Minneapolis today?
Yes, after this webinar. Do you know how many digital tools we're using right now, Jason, to talk to these fine folks?
A lot.
A lot.
But guess what? It feels frictionless, or hopefully it feels frictionless. So we're going to talk about A, what is digital? What is digital? Okay, a key component to take away from this. B, how do we design digital tools and the digital experience?
I crossed out tools.
Is crossed out.
Wasn't that?
Yeah, no, I was going there. The tools is crossed out on purpose because we don't design tools.
Right.
We design experiences. Experiences make us feel a certain way. Tools don't make us feel a certain way. And then last, how do we deploy and communicate those experiences, those digital experiences, in a way where they stick? As we go through, please put your questions in the chat. Please, in the chat, say, throw a tomato, say we don't agree, whatever it is. This content is designed for all size organizations, okay? So some of you are going to say, hey, we're too small for this. You're not too small for this. If you have an intranet, a portal, a homepage, email, you're not too small for this. So please, please, please keep that in mind. This is all we do at LeapGen, is design work to help organizations transform. And one of the things we talk about often is this concept that everyone is in a form of transformation. Everyone. Whether you're doing a big human resource digital transformation, or whether you're doing a small transformation in just how your onboarding process, your recruiting process works, you're transforming. Transforming means change. Okay, and we're going to talk more about this, how change is part of your strategy. It's not the enemy of what we're doing here. What we all do all the time are these three things. Okay, no matter what we're doing, big, small, we A, develop strategies. We B, deploy those strategies. And we C, should sustain those strategies. Okay? We develop a strategy with key measures of success. We align people's mindsets. We then deploy those strategies. As part of deploying the strategy is the implementation of technology. But it's not just the implementation of technology. I hope that makes sense. So many people jump right from strategy to implementation without thinking about the design and the change behavior that has to go into it. This isn't your grandparents' change management. This is change enablement, and how do we change the way audiences behave? And third, we think about ROI, the sustainment. Melody, I love your comment, and I just want to throw it. Video conferencing has been a game changer for scale. Video conferencing has been a game changer for scale, but video conferencing, Melody, has also been a game changer for empathy. Okay, if you remember 2 years ago, people wouldn't even turn on their cameras. There was this thing called a conference call. Everyone's like, oh, we're just going to conference call in. We're not going to turn on our cameras. So the concept of video and Melody, how we use video. Because Melody, your comment is great. But if I didn't acknowledge your comment and I didn't call you Melody, video conferencing wouldn't feel like you're building a connection. It would just mean you're connected. So video and tools like this with the human side built into it, that's truly what helps do this going forward. So when we think about digital, we think about these four things. And Jess, you know, it's my dream. It sounds really, really weird to have this henna tattooed on everyone's body. Okay? There's four components that make up digital. And for all of us to be digitally successful as humans in the world today, we need to think about these four things. Is our mindset open to how we do work in today's world? Are we designing for people the way that people actually can work based on who they are, their persona? Okay, so if I'm going to do a webinar like this and I'm going to send it out and want everyone to join from their mobile app and there's no mobile app for WebEx, how would that feel to you? Tone deaf. So we're designing all of our strategy and what our vision is based on the audience and how they work. Third, we have processes. When you registered for this, that was a process. You were putting in data. But guess what? Your journey to get to the webinar would make or break whether that process worked. That point I just made is so important. HR organizations all over the world have great processes in systems and great processes that no one can find because they have dumb intranets, which oftentimes look like link farms. You heard me, link farms. A link farm is just a set of links. Tanya, I love you. One of our challenges is reaching those employees who do not have digital tools available to them. So why don't they have them available to them, understanding them, and how do we get it to them? And then lastly, oh, there's connection with Tanya. And then lastly, what is the right technology to make it work? Okay, but so often we start with the technology instead of starting with how are we going to measure success. And our measures of success cannot be go live. Please remove that from your vocabulary. One of our measures of success might be called go begin. But then what do we do with it over time is where the value really, really, really comes into play. The last thing I'm going to say about this before I turn it over to Jess is this concept of within the mindset, within this vision. I'm doing a big mindset session in New York City tomorrow where all we're doing is helping people unlearn. I know that sounds weird. Helping people unlearn. But in order to drive the tools and the capabilities to be successful, we oftentimes have to unlearn. Shubha just said, most often we struggle with adoption by users of what seemed like great digital ideas. Shubha, a few things I'm going to throw out there and then turn it over to Jess, I promise. First of all, adoption isn't your goal. Feeling and generating a feeling of experience that someone's going to remember is a goal. Or someone says, that was a great experience. Adoption alone isn't our goal. The second thing is, let's not call our people users. Okay, users are licenses of software. We're talking about humans. And in order to truly understand our people, we have to think of them as humans. How they work outside of work, and then what it feels like inside of work. Which really leads us to this question. A great question for you all to think about is this. It's 2022 outside of work, right? I'm going to share with you an example. I took an Uber to the airport in Minneapolis this morning. I made a hotel reservation on Marriott when I got to New York City. I went through Clear and used the Delta app to do that in the Minneapolis airport. I got to the Newark airport and ordered an Uber. I got to the Renaissance Hotel where my mobile key was already ready. And I got to my room and held up my phone to the door. That is the world outside of work. Oh, and by the way, I could chat with someone if I wanted to, ask any questions. Now, compare that to inside work. How does it feel inside to get something done, to get a journey done like I just walked through? If it doesn't feel the same, that's the chasm. Does that make sense, everyone? That's the chasm we're trying to fill. So when people say, oh, the employee experience at work is not good, it's because we have to keep in mind that we're humans outside of work, and it's 2022. When we get inside of work, we have similar expectations. We're never going to get to the same, I don't believe, but we should have similar or close to that same kind of experience. In the chat, just type what year you think it feels like to get something done inside of work. Does it feel like 2022? Does it feel like 2015? Does it feel like 2017? Does it feel like
Ooh.
1990? Sanjana, I don't know if you remember where
the 1900s.
Yeah, I don't remember if you know where you were during Y2K. I do. And 19 freaking 80. I love that, Steve. But that's the kind of stuff, you guys, that we have to think about. How do we leapfrog and get better at as we're designing how do these digital experiences look and feel going forward. So, Jess, I'll turn it over to you to take us through this next section.
I love this setup. I literally love this setup because whatever that chasm is, 1980 to now, or 1997 to now, whatever that chasm is, and let me scroll back. I think there's a chasm for everybody. Nobody said 2022, and definitely nobody said 2023. You're not ahead of the innovation curve in the experience you're designing for people. Understand. But whatever that chasm is, it's friction. It's friction. It's potentially disengagement. It's potentially productivity that's hitting your bottom line. That chasm is impacting your business in whatever way it shows up. And that's because, back to that digital equation for success, and we will bring you back home to that, that's because we've probably thrown tools and solutions and technology. We probably said, I can't hire anybody, it must be my ATS. Or why isn't anybody completing their learning courses when you haven't designed a learning culture and shown them how to do that? Why are people leaving for better positions when you haven't done any succession or development work in your organization? Tools don't fix organizational problems. Tools aren't going to attract and keep and develop and retain people. What you do with them can, if you have an aligned vision and if you design it for the right outcomes, and that's a concept we talk all the time, Jason, the concept of being a digital organization. Thinking digital is basically thinking about all of the potential ways in which work can get done. Human, automation, tool design, sure. And we're going to talk about a framework and an approach to help you do that. But that's a really important concept to start with, the concept of thinking digital. And if you move ahead a little bit, I'd love to talk a little bit about the digital workplace. How does the digital workplace, which we all are, by the way, I don't care if you're a grocery store, you're a digital workplace now, how people log their time, how they request time off, how they got trained for their job, how you build culture and engagement between workers, how they connect to their leaders. I trust there are digital tools in place to some extent. And so everybody's a digital workplace now. We're all thinking about how people connect to themselves, to their work, to each other, to programs and services. How does a digital workplace support experience? The digital workplace is about connection. If you go ahead to the next slide, and Jason, you did this at the outset, it's not about getting people connected to systems and tools. We saw this at the onset of the pandemic. The first reaction we all had was, oh my God, how are people going to get work done now? And by that, we meant now that they're not connected to a physical workplace in some cases. For those of us where knowledge workers and other types of workers were tethered, to sort of physical constructs of the workplace, we had to completely reimagine overnight a new idea, a new concept around the digital workplace, which we probably should have been planning for and designing all along. And so I'd like us to think about, it's not a place, it's not brick and mortar, it's not even the laptops that you carry or the devices that you use. It's how you think about connecting people to each other, driving productivity, measuring their engagement, creating opportunities for collaboration, how you reimagine culture and connection in your organization. That's how you can reimagine how work gets done, and that's why it connects to employee experience. If you have anything to do with employee experience or employee engagement in your organization, if you're a program leader that supports an experience vision, for example, that's the connection. The digital sort of tools and the culture and the vision that you create, that is what connects people to your brand, to your organizational purpose. That's the new culture that you maintain and sustain with each other. So Leo's example of a coffee app, that's digital culture. That's such a great example. It's not just connecting with each other to say, hey, did you get that done? Did I get this done? Is this project on track? It's creating those moments for people to connect and collaborate in other human ways. I found a stat, there's tons of stats. I didn't have to go very far to find this one. Anything you do around digital workplace design reinforces work satisfaction. So this is the 92% stat on the next slide. Whatever it is in your organization, I bet if you polled people in your organization, having the tools, we're back to tools now, having the tools to do their job, 92% of people say having the right tools to do their job affects their work satisfaction. Why is that? Again, that's back to the friction that I might feel. If you ask me to accomplish something, but I don't know how, if it doesn't feel easy and intuitive, if I don't know what device it's on, if the journey hasn't been designed for me to complete that, in an efficient manner the organization expects me to, that's work satisfaction. Or if I have to hunt and peck in the portal to find the leave policy that I'm supposed to follow, that affects my work satisfaction. I think that goes without saying. So just a quick true and false. We have a poll built for this. We'll put it up for a minute or so. You can tell us in the chat as well. We're talking about sort of this rate of digitization and how fast things accelerated. So true or false, and I know I'm kind of leading the witness here, I'm begging the question, your place of work digitized faster in the last few years than it did in the last decade or more. I know a lot of you said 1990, 1980, it still feels like, but true or false, did more happen? Did you throw more tools at people? Did you change out technologies or processes? Did you do more to transform in the last few years than you did in the last decade or more? And there's sort of a reason for asking that. We're gonna ask you if you did the 10% of the equation or if you did the rest of the equation as well when you threw sort of new things at people in an attempt to keep up with the pace of work. Jason, how do you think it's going to come out?
Well, if it's not 100%, yes, I'm scared. Which I don't think it can be, to be honest with you. I think some organizations don't know what to do or don't know how to make the business case to do it. But I would guess it's probably 75, in reality, 75% digitized faster. Jess, one of the things that we talk about a lot is that we know work changed more in the last 2 years than it did in the previous 50 combined. Mm-hmm. So if we as an HR function and we an IT function haven't been focused on digital and digitizing work, we miss a huge opportunity, but it's not too late. It's time to do it, though, now.
Yeah. So on the next slide, most of you, I'm seeing the poll results come in. The vast majority of you said, sure, of course. We digitized a lot. We threw a lot of new tools and processes at people.
Oh, 83%, Jess.
83. That's incredible.
83% said true. That's great.
That's good. And if you didn't, I wonder why. It might be the type of work that you do or the type of workforce you support. But the digital tools, which we call the now of work, on the next slide, the digital tools of the now of work kind of fall into three buckets in my mind, but there are some tools that are all three. But you can imagine all of the new things you probably introduced to the business and to the workforce in the last few years. Like, I wish I could say raise your hand in a live ballroom if we were all together at a conference. Who's using a new communication tool in the last few years? It could be web conferencing or Zoom or whatever. New communication tools to keep.
Hey, Jess, just have them put it in the chat.
Put it in the chat.
Yeah. Are you using one of these, just new communication tools, communication and productivity, or communication, productivity, and collaboration? Just love to hear that.
Completely. And when I think about the plethora of new tools that people are using, trying, some of them are supported by the enterprise. They're enterprise tools that are part of the fabric of the way your organization works. And some of them are things that you're just sorting out and figuring out. You might be going out and downloading a project management app because it works for you, and that's how you organize your own self and day and work-life balance or whatever. But it's kind of mind-blowing to think about all the tools we use in our everyday life, ideally in the flow of work, to keep us, just like your journey to New York, Jason. That was a journey you were on. We're going to talk about journeys in a second. All of these tools ideally support and connect and create one seamless experience that makes people better, faster, more efficient, allow me to get from point A to point B that much more easily. All of these tools, we're sort of reinforcing that, of course, there's tools available. Technology is not the same as digital, but all of a sudden we're using all of these technology and apps and tools to support the digital workplace, and we're probably missing something really, really important. Back to that digital equation for success, we're probably missing sort of the vision and a stated purpose around the experience we're trying to design for people and what the digital culture in our organization looks like and how we're designing to meet people where they are so those tools stand a chance of being effective. How many of you blamed your technology? The technology didn't work. It's not the technology. 9 times out of 10, it's not the technology that didn't work. It's our failure to design it according to our own business needs and the outcomes we need and deploy it accordingly to people who needed to understand how to use it more effectively. So Jason, I'd love to talk about being digital. And being digital is designing and deploying. And we already touched on the fact that digital is simply empathy at scale. Is everybody tracking so far with this difference between digital and technology? Because now we're going to talk about designing and deploying, which is really the framework to get to true adoption, if we want to talk about adoption that way.
Technology is a tool that technology enables digital thinking. Technology enables digital ways of being and being digital. I love how most people said yes to all three of them.
All three, yeah.
I'd love for you guys in the chat just to say, is work better now or worse now that you've done all three? Just say better or worse. There's that worse word again. But better.
Good.
Worse is okay. Be honest, you guys. If you want to say worse, that's cool too. But it's nice to see that most people are saying better, and it shows that we are making progress in thinking about how do we make work better. Worse for work-life balance, but better during the day. Melody, missing something using technology from a culture perspective. Both Melody and Amy and the HR manager, sounds like a Halloween costume. Sorry, I know you have a real name other than the HR manager. Those are all design discussions. Okay? I mean, Melody, if we just throw a tool out there and don't give people guidelines about when and how to use it, that can make work-life balance harder. Amy, if we just throw a tool out there without helping people understand how to blend it into building culture, that's the way it's going to feel. And the same thing, too many different tools, different ones in different departments. That's governance. So we're going to talk about that right now and thinking about how do we be digital. When being digital means we must understand how do people actually create experience. Amy, can I pick on you for a second? Type in the last thing that you bought on Amazon. If you
could. You're willing to admit to.
That you're willing to admit to in front of a group of 1,000 people. What's the last thing, Amy? A board game for my kids.
Board game, nice.
So Amy went on and found a board game on Amazon. Now, when she found that, Amy, what's the name of the game? While I do this, what game? But
I need tips.
When Amy went on to find that game, she used the search bar, or really the answer bar, K-Ton Jr. Well, I don't even know what that is, which is crazy. But I do have kids, but it must be maybe littler. Do you know what that is, Jess?
Nope, I'm looking it up. My kids love games.
But when we think about that, Leo knows it. She did a search. She typed in, I'm probably not even saying it right, the name of the game. When she actually found the game, what she found about the game was knowledge about the game. So information about the game. She found reviews about the game. She found analytics, like people that bought this also bought this. And then she saw the button that says buy now. So often we just put out tools that are transaction without any of that other interaction. Does that make sense? So if an employee goes in and says, hey, I'm going to use employee self-service, which, by the way, we should never call it self-service. We should call it direct access. And the first thing someone sees is effective date. They're like, I don't know what an effective date is. Are they going to go Google it or go somewhere else to find out what an effective date is? No, they're going to abandon and call. We have already created a bad experience. So think about what you do outside of work. Think about what you do in the B2C space, the consumer space, and then ask yourself, is what we're actually doing good, giving employees direct access to the tools they need to do their job? An experience is not a user interface. Okay? As I said earlier, we probably shouldn't use the word user. But if you think about this for a second, Charlene loves using Uber. Actually, let me not talk about Charlene for a second. Amy got her game. But let's say she went through that whole process, loved the Amazon experience, clicked buy now, said I need it in 3 hours at my door, got the box at her door, and instead of getting the game Catan Jr., she got the game Chutes and Ladders. You remember that one, Jess? Candyland?
Uh-huh.
Connect 4?
Yep.
Any of those? She would be like, wow, the user interface from Amazon is great, but my overall experience, not good. Same thing if you use Uber or Lyft, right? You order an Uber Black, and what shows up is a car that only has one seat in it besides the driver's seat, and you've got 4 people. Good user interface, bad experience. So we have to think it all the way through, you guys, to the point of if someone can't figure out how to use a tool and they abandon, what happens? Are they lost? Or does it automatically help them know where to go next when we do this? That's talking about design. We're designing with people first as we do these things. And our solutions, the technologies we look at, need to match that, or they're designed for people first. For so long, for those of you in the HR space, the first thing we do is we roll out tools to the HR department. Now, tools for the HR department, HR people know how to speak HR. Employees don't know how to speak HR. HR people, because it's their job, are willing to go through multiple iterations of tools. And we have this crazy concept in the world still from the past called minimum viable product. If you download an app from the App Store that you don't like, Charlene, what do you do? If you download an app from the App Store that you don't like, what do you do? Leave it on your phone, or you delete it? And how long do you give it to decide whether you like it or not? A month?
ASAP.
Eldon said delete it ASAP. Yeah. First try, usually. And then how often do you go back, Charlene, to see if it gets better? Once you delete it, how often do you go back to see if it gets better? Oh, yeah, we'll try it again. Mm-hmm. Rarely. Now, think about that when you deploy an intranet or a portal. Think about that when you roll out employee and manager self-service. If someone's first experience with it is not positive, what do? Abandon and never come back. And then what do? Blame the technology. So we have to shift our thinking from minimum viable product to minimum lovable product. MVP to MLP. What is the minimum lovable product that's going to get Charlene to say, wow, this is interesting. I might stick with this. And it's going to get better over time, but the first part of it is not stupid, or she can't figure out what to do. The first part of it, the first phase, adds value. So we can keep making it better over time as we switch from minimum viable to minimum lovable. To do that means I have to understand my audience. So Charlene is someone who has little patience in life. She's very busy. She has a mobile device. She needs clarity and consistency, as you see with Naya here. And today, she doesn't feel like she has the tools she needs. Because I know that about this persona, someone who's upward and onward in their career in the organization, guess what? I can push things to them that make them feel like I know them. Does that make sense? So instead of doing a peanut butter spread and thinking that, hey, guess what? One size fits all. Right now, in most organizations, if we take a one size fits all approach, it's really a one size fits none approach. I'm personalizing what that experience feels like based on who I'm deploying to and how I'm deploying it. To do that, I have to think about this concept of designing for the empty chair. okay, which means that the people that are involved in the design shouldn't be just HR people or just IT people. It should be the employee who doesn't know what a position number is. That's not the position that you adjust your Peloton to. Okay? They don't know what an effective date is. That's not a kiss at the end of the first date. It was an effective date. Okay? Bad joke. But they understand English. When I type something on the portal like I'm having a baby, something pops up for them that helps them. They shouldn't have to type in, I'm having a dependent. How many of you say, hey, guess what? I'm pregnant. I'm having a dependent. You don't. It might feel like that, but you don't. So it's important to design. What are the emojis you're looking for, Eldon and Shirlene? Since there's no emojis, you're just going to have to express it in words. I love that you're so hip that you need those emojis. But yeah, I like the fact that you're using the words there. When we think about the next phase of this digital equation, processes generate data, but journeys generate feeling. Okay? We have a lot of tools, but if I can't get to them, back to something Shabhu said earlier, it doesn't matter if I have great processes. Okay? So when we think about that, we want to build and this doesn't have to be fancy, you guys, journey maps as to how does someone feel along the way. What does the journey look like, and where are the chances that there are roadblocks or frustrations or abandonment? And I need to be able to measure how people are feeling. So when I think about deploying in a digital way, I don't roll out a survey once a year and say, what do you think of our tools? I say, hey, Grace here, when you complete this journey, how was it? Thumbs up, thumbs down. That's it. Nothing fancy. Don't overcomplicate this. Thumbs up, thumbs down. How was it? People work through journeys, not modules. Okay? Here's a comment from Leo. Last time I applied for parental leave, I got a nice automated standard memo stating something along the lines of, if I wasn't really having a baby, I would be terminated.
My God.
Who lies about having a baby? Not a great experience. And, 3, think about the T word, trust.
Yeah.
Like, instead of saying, congratulations, Leo, and by the way, working for the organization, there's a discount on diapers. There's a discount on health care and parental care. They're actually saying you're going to be terminated. That's an example of not just bad employee experience, but terrible employee experience.
I always say it's like the most simple example, Jason. When you think about experience, designing workforce experience, act like you're having a guest in your home. You're anticipating them. You're looking forward to them. You're thinking about what they might need. Will you feed them? Like, how will you greet them? Like, we don't even think about it from just a basic human care perspective.
Jess?
Yes.
Last time I came to your house, you didn't have Tito's vodka for me.
I had a whole handle up in the...
I'm just kidding. You do practice that very, very well in what you do. But yeah, that's exactly right. And realize that in today's world, your journeys cross systems. Okay? Most organizations use on average 45 to 50 HR systems, including Word, Excel, PowerPoint, et cetera, et cetera. The employee shouldn't know where to go. Journeys cross that. Would you do that to your mother? I ask this question to my team all the time on service delivery and design. I love that, Charlene. The other thing that's really important about what you just said is, and I do this with my kids. They hate it. I have a 15-year-old. If you don't have a teenager, borrow it. Ask your teenager to go to your company's homepage and apply for a job. My son, his name is Alex. I ask him to do this with every company we work with. And he's like, he does it over and over again as a joke to me. He's like, there's nowhere on here it says jobs. I don't know where to go. I'm like, Alex, right there it says careers. He goes, I don't want a career. I just want a job. That's another example of how we need to think about who we're designing for. Like I said, processes generate data, which we need in HR, but journeys generate that feeling. And what we want to do, Shubha, thank you for saying that, is we actually want to, Shirley, I went to a company's website this week looking for careers and couldn't find it. It's because they actually called it Amazing Jobs. I think they've been listening. Wow. They've been listening. So when you think of it as careers, Charlene just made me laugh. You think of it as careers, it's really a job. And as we think about the proliferation of jobs, which we're not going to get into tasks, we could even get to that. But let's not go there. When we think about how do we think about designing, we have to think about, do we want to design with a high-touch human way or a high-touch digital way? Usually it should be both. It should start with digital, and then if I get stuck, it should take me to a human. Okay? There will be cases where you say, hey, we really want to talk to a human. But this is always the part of this presentation where I'll say, do you prefer talking to a chatbot or a human? Most people say humans, and the reason why is because they say the chatbot doesn't work. If the chatbots worked, guess what? We would prefer to start with a bot and eventually, if we needed to, get to a human. As I said, focusing on building connection throughout. A chatbot can make you feel really good, you guys. I know that sounds really weird maybe to you, but the chatbot or an app, if designed correctly, an intranet or portal, if designed correctly, can make you feel really good. In fact, it can make you feel better than a human because you can access it 24/7. It's always going to have standard information where if you ask 50 people a question, you may get 50 different answers. So Jess, I'll turn this over to you for this poll. I love it.
I do too. 85% of you said you digitized faster. It all accelerated. That's fantastic. You have new tools, new solutions. Hopefully you're closing the gap a little bit between 1980 and today. Okay, here's the real question. How good is it? How would you, and some of you told, does this make you happier? Does it make work better? But what grade, just being honest, and you might not own all of it, right? I totally get that. But for the portion that you're responsible for, you're privy to, if you feel qualified to grade it, what grade would you give your digital workforce experience? Pretend you're part of the workforce, actually using the tools, the service delivery tools, whatever. How would you grade yourself? And what we're really looking for is how well did you consider the empty chair? I was a recruiter back in the day, grew up in this space as a recruiter before I went to that was my practitioner hat that I wore before I was part of all of the talent technology solutions that delivered recruiting solutions. And I can't tell you how many times I used recruiting tools that never asked recruiters how they actually get work done, how they review resumes, how they disposition candidates, how they get somebody hired in a system. It was designed from a business perspective, but nobody actually asked the recruiter or the hiring managers what worked most effectively. You were just handed a tool because it was probably part of a suite, gift with purchase, and told to use it. And if nobody asked me how well that actually worked for getting my job done, I probably wouldn't rate it very well. How did we look from a grading perspective?
So Jess, we have 50% at C or below, and we have 50% at C or above.
Wow.
So right in the middle. But that's important, you guys, because C or below means we have a lot of work to do to try to make sure that the employees feel good about the tools that they have to do their job. Because if they don't, and the day they get a call from a recruiter and they're frustrated, guess what? They're going to listen to that call. So for 50% of us, at least, we have work to do in this area. So Jess,
Jason, I think,
go ahead, sorry.
I was going to tell you, let's go to the deployment. We have a tip for deployment. This, doing great digital workforce experience design requires you operate like a digital function. And please call us. send us an email, send us a snail mail, whatever digital tool you want to use to get in touch. We can help you figure out where you're at and how to move a little bit further along the digital maturity curve so that you can grade your digital workforce experience better. But if we want to talk about a little bit of the deployment stuff we do, Jason, we've got a slide on, how to think about deploying solutions, which is really to deploy capabilities rather than just implementing technology. Maybe we can kind of come here with people for a little while.
Yeah, I think that's great. So when we think about deployment versus implementation, the first thing to think about is the design. Who are we designing for? And what are our measures of success going to be? Who are we designing for, and what are measures of success going to be? Second thing is we want to drive engagement, not enragement. Okay, and that's not meant to be a play on words. It's true. Like, people get enraged when stuff doesn't work. I mean, I was enraged earlier today when my Face ID didn't work on my phone for something. Now, enraged may be too strong, but when we think about that, engaged versus enraged. In the chat, what engages you when you're using technology? Just put it in the chat. Just individual words. What engages you? Annette had Face ID problems this morning too. Simplicity.
No, I said hi to her earlier in the chat.
Interactive, ease of use, works like it should. What drives enragement? I know that's going to be opposite, but like specifically, what drives enragement? Works like it should. Very good, Heron. Delay, not working. Redirects, good. Not getting the result you expected. Doesn't work as designed. Interesting. Good. So these, you guys.
I love that one too, Jason.
Yeah. These guys, these are your guiding principles. What you just wrote there are your guiding principles. And before you deploy anything, you should look back at those guiding principles and say, did we follow them? Now, the other thing that we want to talk about is how do we, when we deploy, we're not just focusing on adoption, because adoption is just, do I go there? It's fascinating to me. People say, hey, 92% of our people know how to use X because they go there. That doesn't mean they know how to use it just because they go there. What I want to do is I want to shift the thinking from how do I shift from adoption to saying, wow, I know exactly where to go when I need to. And just like we use Siri, or just like we use Amazon, or just like we use Google, we know that's that one-stop shop. Okay, so we're not just focusing on the adoption side, we're focusing on truly knowing and trusting where I'm going to go. And lastly, it's built for humans, not users. Back to that example of I'm having a baby versus a dependent. Someone says, I want to change my address. Okay, what someone's probably really saying is they're moving. So when I type in I'm moving, what do? Okay, Amazon makes it easy in a good way. And one of the things a lot of people don't understand, Amy, and for everyone on this call, Amazon is 192 systems, all woven together in a way that makes it easy. 192 modules. And out of the 192, 85 different vendors. Now, could you imagine? They had to design for Amy. We have to think about that when we think about deployment and how do we design for our people, our humans. Once again, back to this point, digital does not equal technology. Digital is a way of being, it's a way of thinking, and it's focusing on that concept of continuous improvement. The last thing I want to talk about is really these three things tied to stop just implementing technology and start deploying. Okay? Number one, stop blaming technology. Stop blaming vendors just because they're not in the room or they're the ones that don't have feelings. Stop just implementing tech. Stop just implementing playbooks. Start with your vision. Start with the concept of your thinking digital first. You're agile. You're focused on that audience. You're deploying solutions for your business, not for you, and you're designing for those people, not for you. That's number one. Number two, make sure the vision is there and it's actionable. Anything that you're doing that doesn't align to your vision, don't do. Please don't do. So many times when we ask people for their digital roadmap, they give us a technology project plan. And we'll look at that and say, by doing this, how does that align to your vision? We'll say it doesn't. Like, why are you doing it? Because we were told we had to. We have to start thinking about how do we push back on that. We have to act like our vision is written in stone. It's tattooed on us, and make sure everyone understands it. It's visible. It's executable. We're building in gates around it to make sure we've got those guiding principles. And lastly, change is part of the strategy and is part of the deployment. Change management is not a user manual. Change management isn't training. Change in the world of digital is changing behavior and changing the muscle memory. And then lastly, we have to think about deployment as a team sport. So many of us work north-south. We come up with a strategy, we have policies, and then we deploy or implement. North-south, recruiting, performance, comp, learning. We work in vacuums. We're collecting data that's already been collected. And then at the end of the day, all of a sudden people say, why am I entering this again? Why is it so hard to find the data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? We have to work east-west. Because guess what? The employee doesn't care about our COEs. The employee just cares about getting stuff done. So what's our vision? What's our benefit? And what's our timeline? In the slides that you'll get, if you request them, you'll get examples of all of these. What's the vision? What are the benefits? What does the timeline look like? How to build out a digital strategy? How to really think about those digital strategy outcomes? How do we think about thinking east-west instead of north-south? And then really, how do we think about the business case? These are just lots of client examples of clients that we work with that have done this that hopefully can help you. Jess, one of the things that we're offering on behalf of HR Executive and LUMAPS is a 1-hour assessment of your experience architecture. Your experience architecture is not your list of technologies, but it's how people use and experience digital tools. So if you're interested in that, it's a very easy process. One of our consultants walks through some questions with you and then shows you in real life what that looks like and where are areas for improvement. So if you're interested in that, please complete this. And then, Jess, I'll let you talk about our community because this is so much fun every Friday. And then, Jess, I'll let you do the close here also because I've been talking too long.
No, it's good. I'm so glad we had time to get through all of this, including the examples. Again, like client, no client names. I even went through with fine print and removed all the system names and tool names and stuff because these are real examples. Because it doesn't really matter. That's not the whole point. The matter is you all have a whole spaghetti bowl full of stuff that you're trying to call an experience. And in the delivery of this message, we were really asked to talk about how you roll that out to the workforce. I guess my parting advice would be bring them on the journey with you. We forget. I talked to somebody in Montreal last week, Jason, who said, I can't believe we're rolling out fill in the blank major platform, part of their HR transformation journey. I can't believe that's going live on February 1st, and literally nobody knows about it yet, or why it's coming, or what it's going to do for them. Why in the world do we call it HR transformation? We're talking about work transformation. Nobody's told them yet. Oh my gosh, bring your people on the journey with you and tell them why and how they're going to win. That's just my last piece of advice. The community that we started is the Now of Work. It is all about having conversations just like this, how we can all change work for good. Yes, we talk to enterprises every single day on their HR transformation journeys, their attempt to redesign and reimagine workforce experience for people. We also work with the solution providers in this space so they can better connect the dot between their solution, not their product or their features, their solution for the people who stand to win. It really is, it requires practice by all of us to learn how to talk this way and think this way and dig into the work together. And we have that conversation live with an audience, like 3,000 people, I think, every single Friday, Jason. That's our Now of Work community. You're welcomed to join it. We'd love to see you there, and hope we can see you this Friday.
Awesome. We have 2 minutes. Are there any specific questions anyone wants to type in the chat? Amy, thank you. I've downloaded your podcast. For anyone that wants to, the podcast is just called Now of Work. We put it out every single Friday. So take a listen to it. It has over 700,000 listens or so in the last couple of years. So hopefully it's valuable to you. And it's free, of course. Any questions at all about anything we covered today? We'll give it another second or two. Jess, thank you so much for doing this with me. Always a pleasure. Lumaps, thank you for sponsoring this. How do we request a slide deck? Oh, let me go back. Let me go back, Sharon. I'm going to go way, way back to the beginning. The way you request the slide deck is basically...
Where are you going?
Oh, I thought there was a QR code there. I'm sorry.
At the end?
Let me go back.
Okay.
Let me go back to the end. The best way to get the slide deck is scan this and just let us know that that's what you're looking for is the slide deck, and we'll make sure we get that out. That would be great. Ray, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Also, if you guys, the other way to get the slide deck is if you want to, I'll just put my, this is kind of dangerous, maybe in a public forum, but I'll put my email address here. Just feel free to email me directly, and I'll make sure I send it to you guys as well.
Yeah, love the engagement. And Catherine, our producer on the back end for Human Resource Executive. Again, thank you to Lumaps. We're big fans. We've seen your solution. You're really doing some amazing work in the space. And Human Resource Executive, always bringing great content and learning to the community for all of us.